Come on, reload.
I want to do the dancing thing that you were doing.
Yeah, where you just
No, it's good. It was a good way to start.
It is. It's a good way to start.
Are we using that Dr. Perry theme music or something?
Oh,
I
we need
believe
to start to do that.
Yeah.
We'll have to start using the theme song for, the intro.
Yeah.
We're good. We're going.
All right.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the green room.
I know. Crazy green room.
We have an interesting green room today.
We
We're
do.
going to be launching a new show that Dr. Barry's doing outside of the green room.
Well, listen, I said to Ruta, we got to
It's
open this
different.
green room with basically this, just the issues of working with me. Okay. Listen, I'm 32-year ER doctor. Everybody knows that. And because of that, I think I was probably ADHD, whatever, before even it was even discussed, seriously. So I'm scattered. And listen, sometimes I just meet people and encounter people that intrigue me to the extent of wanting to put something together. So Don behind the, board over there, I'll tell you, hey Don, put together this and that in a diagram in a day.
It changes
It
all the
changes
time.
every day.
But when it comes to today's special guest in the green room, it's somebody who I've recently met who, listen, I think all of us right now, and that's the idea, it's called bridging the gap. Listen, I'm 64-year-old, Jewish American, right? Grew up in a certain way in the North, this, that, whatever, practiced medicine, science my entire life. So what I've realized is that when I can't even watch like the Emmys or the I can't watch any of these shows anymore because I don't know any of the people. I really don't. So to me, when I get an opportunity to cross generational lines, north-south lines.
So this is going to be a totally different show.
Right.
So this one is we're going to start introducing all of that in a little bit.
So I'm going to hijack the green room.
So
but to start,
but we're going back to the green room today for a few minutes.
to start, let's show our flag once again from Jose Belen. Okay,
Yeah,
our
great
friend
job.
Mission Zero.
Beautiful.
This is our PTSD awareness flag.
It's
right?
Suicide Prevention Month this
It
month,
is.
by the way.
Right
So,
on.
I had a trauma myself this past week with a homeless person, and chances are he most likely was a vet just due to his age. And unfortunately, I was at a traffic light in Sarasota County, and he passed away on the street, and I happened to be there. So, just
Such a scary thing,
it's
as
a
an ER
scary
doctor, I saw
thing,
death,
and
unfortunately, too
the rate
often.
of suicide for vets is ridiculous.
Well, it is.
It's like one every 60 seconds almost. I mean, it's a crazy number.
And it crosses all lines.
And it does in all generations and
it
all
does.
socioeconomic status.
Male prominent, interestingly
It is
enough.
male prominent,
It
but
is.
still, so just be aware of it is
And that's-
suicide
and that's-
prevention.
listen,
and if
that's-
anyone's showing signs, please tell them to reach out, get some help.
Listen, it's so pertinent in the
make sure you
cannabis,
listen to
in the
your
medical
friends.
cannabis world, Ruta. We've lost some significant activists in the
We
medical
have
cannabis
due
world.
to suicide.
So we always think about it.
Bill
We think
Monroe.
about it, of course.
Always, some very prominent.
But I wanted to
people.
bring up that particular flag because, interestingly enough, I commissioned that flag for Sue Sisley, our researcher friend, who leads all the PTSD research at the VA level. And interesting, she had some feedback from her veterans that perhaps that flag may offend some, right?
Really?
Yes, because that is art, right?
Mhm.
Veterans, some will have a philosophy that they really don't want to alter that flag.
Well, because
right?
they're defending the flag,
Indeed.
they put their life in jeopardy over that flag. So I understand that.
So I think it just to kind of tie it in once again to the green room guest of today, artists, musicians, generational things. You can have different insights, right, into what it is they're viewing. And let's just talk about what we're viewing right now in the election cycle, Ruta, because,
It's a crazy
I
thing.
mean, I guess last night's story was you can't vote twice, right? We know you can't, right? In
Not
fact,
normally.
it's against the law to vote
Yeah.
twice. And
Normally, most people don't even want to vote once. I'm like, seriously, it's
Well,
hard
you
to
know,
get these people to
no,
vote.
that's
Seriously.
interesting.
No, population-wise, we're statistically as a country very low turnout voters.
Well, that's
We are.
always been something that's
Yeah,
been so
it's awful.
interesting to me. And I think as we've developed generationally, once again, I mean, we haven't fixed that. We haven't solved that, And one would think that the easiest way to vote should be allowed, of course. And to me, in the computer age, listen, on your cell phone, you can put your thumbprint in. That makes sure it's you. You have one ballot.
Come into 2020, and I think we do need to start using cell phones as a method of voting by eye recognition, thumbprint recognition.
Well, it's
There's so
interesting
many
the things that will
are
advance and the
safeguards.
things that will not
And I
advance.
think they do it for a purpose? To be honest, I start thinking, is it done for a reason? Do they not want people to have easy access voting in this country? It may be because, look, if you look at technology, you go to the bank, you do everything now electronically, yet voting for some reason is massively behind the times. Why is that? I mean, it's very peculiar.
Listen,
It really is.
I'll only say this to you, and I bring it up into the cannabis space. There was an unbelievably horrible article printed in the largest singular emergency medicine send out
Oh my
journal.
goodness. What's the name? You guys have to look at this. It's a terrible, terrible.
And I'm going to bring in our
article.
new products
It
in
is.
Florida in just a moment. But here's the point. Literature still continues to be printed out to doctors every day. The headline
Very
of this article is
anti-cannabis.
medical cannabis is a dangerous lie.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's myself and so many other physicians in the Society of Cannabis Clinicians and AMPA and other organizations recognizing medical cannabis. We have Epidiolex on the market. And now I'm going to bring Patty in for a moment. Listen, exciting in Florida.
You give the van away.
Here's our edibles. Yeah,
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
Listen, here's our edibles in Florida, guys. First official edible. Interestingly enough, everybody, for patients that are watching, call your doctor, okay, because you're going to need to have a different order put in for this product, right? I think we can open them, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
They
So
were
how
easy
they're
open.
packaged is in a plastic baggie. Look at the THC marking, very important. And there's been a lot of
It's
talk
hard
about
to see.
packaging.
We'll zoom in and take pictures and post it
No
so
problem.
people can see
Yeah.
it.
But what the edibles order is all about, everybody, because oral's already in there, right? So oral's interesting. There's been 50 milligram capsules, right, of cannabis in Florida for years already at this point. These are restricted to 200 milligrams per container. So these are 10 milligram gummies. Let me take one out. And they kind of look like a gumdrop. Listen, I'm the Jewish kid around here, so I know you were describing this as kind of like a Christmas candy look type of thing. And once again, I will zoom in later on it, but they need to
Keep
be.
them away from your children.
Well, no, it's
like
important.
any
That's where we're
medicine.
going. They need to be,
Please,
they're opaque. They're not allowed to be green or red or
They're
yellow.
attractive to children.
They can't be attractive to children, right? We're concerned about the edibles, of course, because they need appropriate teaching to know the onset, how long things are going to last, okay, the different effects. There's a change in the liver from the delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or basic THC that everybody knows, to 11 hydroxy, right? THC lasts longer, different effects.
That is 100 milligrams.
Yeah, I know these are 100 milligrams.
Yes,
So there's
price
10
is $25.
pieces, 10 pieces times 10 times 10, it's 100. I can even do that. So the point is, and this is $25, I guess, per True Leaf. And listen, we're excited about this. There's going to be candies, and brownies, and these will be all the different dispensaries, guys. But I want to congratulate True Leaf and their team for getting those out there. You know, interestingly enough, there have been other similar products, some called soft sublingual tablets. But the difference is that those were able to be filled under sublingual or oral, right? So back to the point for the patients, these need to be filled under edible. Why the OMU chose that is interesting, and makes it a little bit more difficult for patients to achieve it because they have to touch base with their doctor to get the order, but very easy for the practices to put the order in. So that's the good news. But the point is, I think it's about the packaging, Ruta.
Well,
And once
it's the
again,
packaging, and
it's a
it's
safety
also, it's
issue.
a safety issue
Yeah.
because there's a lot of criticisms about edibles, and especially in Florida and anywhere, because people are nervous about their children getting into it and getting sick off of taking these.
well, that was the second article that
and there was
also
another
appeared,
article.
written by a pediatric
But
ER
I don't think
doctor.
anyone's questioning, should they be childproof?
Nobody.
Nobody. And
Nobody.
should they have, be hidden like any other medicine? It's a medicine.
Of course.
So you're not gonna leave any of your medicines in front of your children, and you should not leave those as well.
But the
So-
good news about this medicine, and listen, out of the ER world, there are one pill killers for kids, that are pharmaceuticals, cardiac medications. Obviously, nobody wants a child to, and I've seen it happen into a fentanyl patch, put it in their mouth and chew it.
Oh,
So there are things that can kill kids at home. Fortunately, not
Well, kids
cannabis.
put everything in there.
Mhm.
But my point is that still out in the literature, there are people that are influencing doctors, the lay public, politicians, to the extent of still giving this false narrative about cannabis, Ruta. And as you
Yeah.
know, that nothing makes me crazier
Well,
than that.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting in one of the articles in this ER journal, and it was a crazy statement. It was a physician saying, well, all you have for clinical data is you're asking the patient, do you feel better? And we had this discussion. We said, what's the first thing your doctor does when you walk into a primary doctor, you walk to a cardiologist or a gastro? How are you feeling? And that's the number one question of a doctor. And this guy's saying the worst thing they do is they ask, does the patient feel better on cannabis? Hello, well, you ask, is the Coumadin working better or is that working better? So why are this guy was singling out, how do you feel, as like a terrible thing in the cannabis world? It was crazy.
What you bring up, Ruta, is actually a really important point, is that conventional Western healthcare is designed with certain research-based studies. We call them double-blinded, right? Studies that give a placebo, and there's a whole lot of things going on. And I'll tell you about the vaccine issue right now.
Oh, that's a big debate.
I don't want to rush through on the third phase testing. We need to see effectiveness and safety. I mean, we got to be very, very
Absolutely
careful in what we're doing. But getting back to the cannabis side, the point is, what offends me is that doctors that aren't educated continue to hammer upon the THC aspect of it, and the smokable side of it. Whereas what we know in the clinic, it's all the cannabinoids, right, that give the entourage effect, and any number of ways to administer
And
it.
there's other administrations, like people always are like, oh, smoking, and it's not. And
so when you have a guy like who penned this, who's actively seeing patients, now listen, everybody, Florida's got their program, and it's a good program. It really is. It's not perfect. It's good. It's developing. We want to make it better.
We focus a lot on patient education, especially in our clinic.
That's what it's all about.
It is. It's patient education.
Kansas, I'm starting to work with a group of cannabis activists in Kansas. They're 8 years behind us. They're where Florida was just starting out. So we have to understand that there's a myriad of laws and rules about the country, but it is all about safety and education. And we're going to continue to do that in the clinic.
If anyone has any questions, if you're listening, if you have any questions about edibles or anything else that we're talking about, or any questions in general about medical marijuana, please always feel free to just text your question and we'll get to it and hopefully give you a satisfactory answer on your question. So please, if you have them, we're live, so you can just put it on Facebook and we'll ask your question. And
it's so critical, Ruta. We have 64 days until the election, or 63, I think it is today, or something like that.
It's coming down to the wire. Early voting starts in North Carolina, I think next week already, and then Florida in about 2 weeks we roll out for early voting.
And there's also going to be a vote on the MORE Act, actually, at the federal
level. So if nobody knows about that, it's coming up. Hopefully, the vote's going to be in September. We know that it's probably going to pass through Congress. We think it's going to get blocked at the Senate and the House level. It's a moratorium on actually legalizing marijuana in the state, in the United States, on the federal level.
And in the House, which obviously the Senate's going to have to flip for it to go anywhere.
The Senate won't go for it.
But it's step by step.
So at least if it gets a good vote, it's on the table. It gets on the table all the time. Hopefully there'll be change in November. So come January, the new administration, we hope, will be more proactive with cannabis. And then for the veterans, you know how critical it is for PTSD, your access to medical marijuana. Please make sure you're voting for the appropriate person who's going to represent your best interest. Always, never, I suggest to everyone, never vote. We talked about this. Don't go just party lines. Vote for who is in your best interest and what is important to you. So if access to cannabis is important to you on a federal level, if you want to have insurance carriers start recognizing it as a medicine so you don't have to pay out of pocket for it, vote appropriately.
Job protection.
This comes up in our office every day. And right now, there is no job protections, and it's not a federally accepted policy. So we cannot say it's okay for you to use a product like this at your workplace. It's against the law. We cannot state that. So until that changes, so that you have safeguards in the workplace, make sure you're voting for people who are gonna put those safeguards in for you. It's really as simple, it's just simple and.
And you
you
know, it's
share
such
that
an
on that.
interesting campaign season, Ruta, and let's
Yeah.
face it, you've run a campaign before.
Several.
I can only-
Two. I've done two and not
Seriously,
successful.
and I can only
It's a hard
imagine
thing
the
to do.
challenges of getting your message out at this particular time.
It's so hard, and I give, we're gonna be reaching out to all candidates from the congressional level. We had Alan Cohen on last week. We're gonna be reaching out to Margaret Good and Vern Buchanan, to Greg Stubbe and Alan Ellison. And then we're even gonna go hopefully to the county level, so we can have like the Drake Buckmans come out, and everyone who influences legislation on a state level and on a federal level.
And local too.
And local.
Yeah.
I mean, even for county commission, we have Mike Moran right now running against Pinkios. And like we have people that are going to represent special interests and people who are going to represent the people. So make sure you vote appropriately.
Listen, cannabis is still banned in Collier County, still. And the island of Venice, okay, at this particular point, still. So there is so much work to do. Listen, I tell everybody
There is
that
so much work to
the wall literally of idiocy, which still exists, penned by Wichita, Kansas emergency medicine clinicians. Wall of idiocy was up here, okay, when we started 3.5 years ago, and the wall of legitimacy was down here. We're at 50-50 right now.
Yeah,
We get referrals from the doctors in the area every day. And it's my biggest honor to do that. Because listen, but here's why. So many of them can't yet do medical cannabis. Hospital administrations and rules stop them from doing it, right? You may have 3 or 4 doctors in a group. 3 may want to do cannabis, but there's one holdout that won't let the entire group do it, right? So there's a lot of reasons. So people say, everybody listen, Zoom may not always be secure. So believe it or not, there was a very important meeting last week at the DOH level that was a Zoom. And what it was, and the reason I bring it up, it reviews the patterns of the doctors in the state that practice medical cannabis, right? It's called the Pattern Review Board at the Department of Health level. And it's a very important meeting. And I typically show up somewhere on the top kind of listings. So I always like to know what's going on and who they're talking about and what they're talking about, things of that nature. So I tuned into the Zoom. Well, wouldn't you know that about...
There was a very inappropriate site that came on.
Let's just put it that way. and actually, video exists. I blinked my eyes once at it.
Let's just say
but
it
the point is,
wasn't
be
rated
careful.
PG.
Be careful with your Zooms. But the reason I bring up the pattern review is that that's the reason that our clinic is so active, because so few other doctors can do medical cannabis at this point or are not yet interested in it. So I, once again, as we do, we have an open door policy here at our clinic. Any clinician who may be watching today that wants to come on in and tour our facility, see our wonderful product room.
And anybody, and hopefully COVID one day will come to a close.
It will.
And
but we've got our masks.
We have our masks, and we actually, let's talk about
Telehealth.
telehealth for a second. So
Yeah.
telehealth is most likely going away this Saturday. We're not sure yet if Governor DeSantis is going to extend it at all.
Let's speak to it. How it happened this time, we had a 60-day state of emergency in the state of Florida. Order, right? We're well into the 55 or no, I think it was an entire state of emergency order, Ruta, that exists under.
Maybe.
Irregardless, the governor is going to have to make another similar state of emergency order, either healthcare specific or general, right? I do not expect an announcement about that. The last time it occurred, there was not a general announcement about that. So we pay attention, right? So for our patients, believe me, you'll know if we have telehealth, but we want telehealth to be extended. Listen, everybody, masks aren't going away, right? And we can talk about that too. But masks aren't going away. They're probably not going away for 6 months to a year. And you know what?
It's been the 6-month mark in Florida. Can you believe it?
No.
That the first cases of COVID hit Florida 6 months ago.
Wow.
I was like, wow, it's been half a year already. It's
and believe it or not, we're starting to come up on a cycle for our 210-day patients, right?
We just did telehealth.
Who have already done telehealth.
We do have a question.
Hold on, we have a question.
Yes.
So hopefully it gets extended.
So this question, it comes from, how come the prices for recertifications are all over the place?
the prices for
Everywhere.
recertification.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so in case you didn't hear Don, he read the question. It's about pricing, that it fluctuates from practice to practice, not only for initial visits, but for recertification. So if you want to address that.
Well, I can, listen, I can do it in a joking manner, or I can do it in a serious manner, so I'll do both. As is my typical fashion. Listen, I tell everybody that, medicine's interesting because to price medicine to a certain extent is difficult because
Well,
excellence
it
of
will.
excellence
But
of,
it will if it goes federal. Just know, so then you're gonna, once it goes federal, let me just answer this from an insurance perspective. Everything's based off of CPT 10, it was 9, now it's CPT 10, I think,
right.
codes. And so what happens is you're gonna have ICD 9s and ICD 10s again, and you're gonna have different levels of office visits. So if you're going to your primary care physician for the first time, it's going to be an initially higher charge to your insurance company and to you because it's the amount of time that you're spending with the patient is going to take longer. So the charge is higher. So say it's going to be on average, say 175. Then the second time you come in to see that same physician, it's going to be a lower level visit. So all of a sudden then the charges, according to Medicare guidelines, goes down. So that 175 will become 125. Subsequently, they'll go down because you're spending less time. So if it goes federal, that schedule should apply to medical marijuana patients. Just
It
because
may,
it
but that's
will,
so
because it's a
far
medicine.
off,
But sorry,
though.
but that's not for
That's okay. No, I mean, that's the insurance world. We're in
the insurance world.
We're in the non-insurance world, right? So
Yeah.
to that extent, this is what I say. The quality of the practice is key, right? So price is price, quality is quality. There's quality in teaching, there's quality in availability and reliability. We pride ourselves on being here every day to answer the needs of our patients, especially now with the edible circumstance. Imagine going to the dispensary, wanting an edible product, your doctor hasn't put the order in yet. And for our patients, call our office, please, before going to the dispensary. We're here, we'll put your order in. But
And
if we
that's
don't know you want the order, then we can't put it in. But here's the point, if your doctor's not available to
That's it. I
you,
wanted to just say that.
Right,
Make sure,
then you're gonna
some
wait.
of the physicians' practices that you go to, they're only there once or twice a week. We're here 5 days a week. We're
Well-
here from 9 to 5. We have a full staff. We have patient educators. We have the physicians here all the time.
I'm going back to the
So-
jokey side. Listen,
Yeah.
I never break my Jewish mother's rule. I never put down anybody else's practice.
No,
And
no,
I
it's not
and
that.
I never
We are
will.
what we are.
But what I always do is accentuate our practice. We focus on education, we focus on advocacy. My patients
here, we're here.
my patients
We're
over
open.
and over tell me,
We're open.
Dr. Barry, one of the reasons that we continue to come to you, although there are other options, is because we know you're in Tallahassee up there fighting, for us and working on the job protections and working on the state-by-state
Well, for
reciprocity
most people don't
issues.
care about that.
You know what, though,
whether
Ruta, you'd be
dollar,
surprised.
I don't know that they would.
Getting back to the dollar amount,
The
and once
dollar
again,
amount counts.
if I'm gonna have hernia surgery, I'm not around looking for the cheapest hernia surgeon to do my hernia
No,
surgery.
no, you want
It's
the
easy
best.
surgery and every general surgeon does it. But I'm still gonna look for that surgeon that has the reputation of
Exactly, you want
excellence.
the reputation.
So that's my point. And listen, people are free to go and find the best options that they can for their recertifications. Now, it's important because of telehealth, you can't do a recertification with a new doctor over telehealth, but you can surely change practices if you want to physically do that. So listen, to me, we always tell our patients that we do not view any other physician in a competitive manner. We're collegial. We like to all pull on the rope together. Ruta, you know how it is. When doctors call me, I always pick up the phone and probably give them a little bit more
Yes,
than you
then
would
you
want
should.
me to do.
I agree.
But it's
that's another
okay.
subject.
It's okay though, because we're just in this formative basis of the entire medical cannabis world. And
we
to me,
hope
the
it
more
stays
people,
and it doesn't go recreational, because a lot of things will change then. at
you know
that
what, when it
point,
goes
so-
legal adult responsible use, and it will, in
It
Florida,
will.
my prediction, everybody 4 to 5 years, we'll see how that shakes down. But my point is, we go for legal adult responsible use with education and regulation. And the reason for that is that the regulated product is important, Ruta, because we want to make sure it's not with mold, not
Oh my
with
God,
fungi, right?
absolutely.
That if you want an indica product, you get an indica product. If you want a sativa product, you want a sativa product.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
people don't understand, and we don't want anybody in the black market getting cannabis products, right? black
Any
market
medicine,
vapes.
any
Well,
medicine.
that's
Do
obvious.
not go to the black market for
Well,
anything like that.
It's
You're
interesting though. and-
ingesting it into your body.
Well, you
shouldn't be-
are,
yeah,
you
should
are,
be
but my
super
point is, it's
careful.
a very unreliable, okay,
it's scary
and
to me.
unsafe and unlawful
Oh, it just
means.
scares me every which
So to
way.
me, in 2020, I just think it behooves us to be smarter, to go with the times in which we live. And I firmly believe that we're 10 years ahead of the curve here on the medical cannabis side of things, because we haven't been able to do the research yet. Really, I'm so glad we came back to that point. Getting back to the knucklehead from Wichita, Kansas, okay? The problem that a lot of doctors have in conventional healthcare, and I get it, is that it's very hard to do studies on the plant cannabis, right? What pharma wants is that they want to isolate the various cannabinoids, right? And then they want to do their tests on those cannabinoids, and then they want to develop them, sell them, make money off them. My point is, that's where the research comes from, is on those individual cannabinoids. When you look at a plant, it's a botanical, right? So plants are different. They grow even out of the ground different. Different strains will have different concentrations, not only of the THC, but the CBD and the other cannabinoids, the terpenes, the other flavonoids, right? So to do a study on a plant is very difficult. So what my point to conventional healthcare has always been, yes, I'm as fervent in my desire for the research as you
everybody
are.
wants research.
And I don't mind if pharma takes the products, the cannabinoids, and listen, they're manufacturing new cannabinoids too, Ruta. I mean, that's that. All right,
How we
beautiful.
doing?
Good,
How we
good. Hang
doing?
on for a second. I'm gonna hijack the green room in a moment. So the point is, it's really about all the cannabinoids, and they're actually manufacturing synthetic, interestingly enough, and we're not all for that in the natural world. But the point is, it's about all the cannabinoids, and we need to discuss that. So for the knucklehead in Wichita, Kansas, open your eyes to medical cannabis. So listen, our special
Okay,
guest is
so I'm
arrived.
gonna sign
Yeah.
off. So I'm gonna ask you guys all to rejoin us in the green room next week. We're gonna be talking about seizures and epilepsy next week, but I'd like to do a quick rollout of a brand new show. It's going to be with Dr. Berry, and we have a special guest who's gonna be also on this podcast, we hope. And what it is we're hoping to bridge differences. As you know, I'm really politically active. So I want to make sure millennials touch base with all the rest of us and get involved and become activists. They have strong voices. They have great personalities. We just want to work together with them. And then we hope that this 2BG is going to do that and have a new voice for political activism among the youth and make change and make differences. So on that note, I'm really, really pleased. Many of you know him from Siesta Key. Brandon Gomes is going to be here, and he's going to head off with Dr. Berry, the new 2BG podcast. So welcome, Brandon.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Yeah, come on in, man.
The introduction was perfect.
Absolutely. And listen, just to tell the story, good to see you, man.
Good to
We'll
see
do
you
the
as well,
yellow
man.
bump.
Thanks for having me.
So this emanates really from just a meeting that Brandon and I had, and I was so intrigued because listen, guys, I'm nothing but 64-year-old here, kind of navigating through 2020, and here I have our 25-year-old friend who's also navigating through 2020. And what my interest is in Brandon, and once again, 2BG, everybody.
Exactly.
And that is my, I lay awake at night, 4 in the morning, whatever. Bridging the gap. Bridging the gap, because listen, you're Southern, I'm Northern. You're an artist, I'm a scientist, right?
Absolutely.
You're from your generation, right? And I'm from mine. So, and I've been crying out, and Patty knows this, to the medical cannabis world and the reps that come in. We need to reach more eyes. We need to reach more voices, right? So I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of chisel into a little bit of a new world. And I'm so eager to hear your perspective on how living, in 2020 is for you, man.
And thanks for having me. I mean, 2020 has been, I'm sure for all of us, has been haywire. It's been all over the place, confusing, dark. And that's why I'm excited to be here today, because I want to talk to people and bring that positivity back and wake up the youth in my generation and bridge the gap between both of our generations. And really, that's why we're having this talk like we're having right now.
For sure, and it's critical. Listen, we have 63 days or whatever it is until the next election.
Yeah, that's what, 2 months?
Right, and that's why I didn't want to wait I really didn't. And when I had the opportunity, and listen, we opened up the green room this morning with me laughing with my staff about the difficulty of working, and I never say for, with Dr. Barry. Because I'm nothing but ADHD myself.
No, I like you,
So
man.
when-
You get energy.
My point is, when we had our meeting and we started to discuss, and I found out some of the things about you and what you're doing in the music world, right?
Mhm,
The
absolutely.
recent changes in your life, of
Yeah,
course, which
I
is,
know.
you know,
Notorious.
kicked you into being a man.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So to
Jump-started
me,
me.
it's important because these next 63 days and this next election is going to be so critical in your life and the
Mhm.
raising of your child and the things that you're going to be doing.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
yeah, just to start, are you registered to vote?
I am registered to
Good.
vote. Yep, I registered. I did that not so long ago. I was meeting with Ed James. Shout out
Okay,
Ed
sure.
James.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and he told me that, you know, like, first of all, I was voting for sheriff. I've never voted for sheriff before. I voted for sheriff this year, and I want to get involved with the president because, you know, like, I want to wake up people in my age range and the youth so that they know that not voting is not okay.
We have to take a step to vote, right? You got to
Yeah.
go register
Yeah.
to vote, and people can
Absolutely.
still do that, of course, right? You
Yeah,
got to go to the Board of Elections. I don't know.
Do it
It's,
right now.
do it right now.
Yeah.
Do it
You
right
can go
now.
online.
Right, you can do it
It's so easy,
online.
just go online.
Right, and that's why I was so interested in connecting with. Now, what do they call your generation these days? Brandy, you're not a millennial,
Yeah,
right?
they
See,
call
you know what I
it,
am? Believe it or not, I'm a baby boomer.
That's the
I
baby
was born at
boomers.
the end of the baby boomer because I was born in 1956.
Yeah, yeah.
So you had World War II,
Mhm.
ended in 1945. And then people rushed back. They rushed into the suburbs, and then there was a boom
Yeah.
of babies, which ended
That's-
up right about
that-
56.
that's
So we've had
exactly it.
Generation X, and we've had millennials, and what? So what do they call you guys, man?
I don't even know, to be honest.
And you
I
probably
really-
hate any label that anybody would put on.
I've heard
anyway.
it all. You know, I've heard we're the internet generation. I've heard, you know, we're the convenient generation. Everything's trying to make more convenient, and I think I'm a millennial though. I'm pretty
Okay,
sure
on
I'm
the
a
tail end of the
millennial.
millennials.
On the
or
tail
something.
end of the millennials.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I'm right in between that generation where,
Right.
you know,
Because you know, one of my interests is, and even in the, talking about medical cannabis specifically,
Mhm.
right, which of course, you know, is where I come from.
absolutely.
I really don't even know if what I hear is true. Is it actually easier to get Adderall than cannabis in as you're growing up through middle school and high school and all that type of stuff? I mean, what's going on in kind of the environment now as you grew up in say, quote unquote, the recreational,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, world these days?
how I grew up, I had a lot of friends that were prescribed Adderall, and that's where most of the Adderall is coming from, and it'd be black market. A lot of people that were, you know, getting it prescribed and selling it legally, stuff like that. However, it's growing up. Really, medical marijuana wasn't a thing until I was about 18, 20ish. You know, when it started becoming medically legal in Florida. But I have a lot of friends that, you know, they went down the narcotics route, you know, and that there was, in my generation, that was super easy to get with all these pain clinics and just
So narcotics even easier than Adderall, so to speak.
narcotics even easier
And even
than Adderall.
easier than cannabis, so to speak, or about the same? I
Um,
mean, the one guy you have, listen, it's one of the reasons that we talk about a legal adult use program, is so that you don't have to go to see the dealer that
Yeah.
may have both cannabis and the, you know, I mean, let's
Yeah,
face it, a guy that's gonna sell you anything is gonna sell you everything,
Exactly, that's
so to
true.
speak.
That is true.
And it has been the disaster of your generation. Listen, my kids are 36, my daughter Jackie and my twins are 30. I know I saw Carly on
Yeah, I did, yeah.
FaceTime
Shout
the
out,
other day.
Carly.
For sure. But the point is, listen, you can't ask a 30 and under if they've lost anybody to narcotic overdose in their life.
Yes,
The
that's
answer is
exactly.
always several,
Yes,
unfortunately.
several. I know plenty of people that have lost their life to narcotics. Yeah.
Right. So to me, it's a critical issue and one that I want to make sure. And once again, people ask, why do you do the things that you do? And why do you bring a Brandon, you know, into the, you know, room and why are you interested in doing a 2BG podcast? So we can continue with this discussion about advocacy and activism is because these are critical issues for every generation and absolutely your generation. Because I was
100%.
saying, listen, the younger you are, the more years they have to mess with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I
You know?
like it, you know, all the years.
All the years. So, and to me, you know, once again, I wanted to give you an opportunity, you know, to once again impact upon your generation.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'd like
to
to
that
ask a
extent.
question.
Oh, of course.
So
Sure.
I'm figuring I'll be one of the audience members
Yeah,
to ask
yeah,
a
yeah.
question. So I want to hear from you. Like we hear from Dr. Beer. I want to hear from you. What's important to you, your generation, your friends? What do you guys talk about? Like, what are the things like important right now that like you guys are like, oh my God, this is so important to me, and I want to work on this, and why is this like this?
Yeah, well, I've always, when it comes to like change, and when it comes to what I can do to spark change, you know, until recently, I sort of was, I never voted, you know, that's out there in the air now. I never voted. And this year I was like, man, it's such a dark time, you know, 2020. I know like it's hard to change the world. One man can't change the world, but you got to start locally. And I started to talk with friends and people of what we can do as like right now to do something. And that's why I met with Dr. Barry. Dr. Barry reached out to me. What's on my mind most of the time during my day is how can I make this music go further, and how can I do things and make my friends and make my team and all of our people go further and successful. But there's a lot of things that I talk about on a daily basis, you know. Medical marijuana is one of them. You know, I want to wake people up to getting in here and sparking this change. You know, a lot of friends I know, there are a lot of people that I'm not really cool with anymore. They went down the wrong route, and I want to be any change and any light to direction something I can, you know, and that's why I'm here right now.
You know, it's funny, Brandon, because Patty and I, of course, knew nothing about Siesta Key
Yeah.
until we happened upon it, and then we did our binge watch and everything.
Mhm.
And I was struck by the alcohol use in Siesta Key. And I would say, listen, it wouldn't be as dramatic a show, I guess,
No.
without it.
Yeah, you're
But I
absolutely
was
right.
struck by the destruction, right,
Yeah.
of alcohol. And
Yeah.
listen, not to bring up anybody specifically in the show, but of course you have your veteran
Yeah.
who has had his trouble with alcohol. I
Mhm.
know there was somebody else on the show that had a cannabis issue.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, to
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
extent.
absolutely.
So I think you have hit upon some real life themes
Yeah.
within the show, but we know there's a lot of drama there too.
100%.
But the alcohol is, listen, this is what I say about alcohol, especially when you're young. Alcohol is an impulsive intoxicant. It speeds things up.
Yes.
It makes you say stupid things, slug the wrong person,
Mhm.
drive at the wrong time. And of course, nobody should be impaired and driving on any substance.
Never,
But
no.
cannabis is almost the opposite.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating driving on cannabis, don't get
No.
me wrong, but
No.
cannabis slows you down. You think, and sometimes you have an anxiety issue. Maybe you overthink, and that's why you got to be careful with your strains. But the
Yeah.
point is, you tend not to do stupid things,
Mhm.
right? So it's not that impulsiveness to that extent. So I would say that if you're all sitting around, the campfire on Siesta Key,
Yeah.
using cannabis, I would suspect it would be a much different
Oh,
show.
it'd be a
You know?
completely different show. There'd be no drama. There'd be no fights. There'd be no animosity. You know, I've always said to everyone that growing up, I remember one of the big like slogans in my time in my age group was marijuana is the gateway drug. And growing up and being in this generation, I've said that alcohol is the gateway drug, and I've seen it many times. I've never seen someone use cannabis and then next thing you know they're doing all sorts of drugs and going off the deep end. I've seen a lot of that with alcohol though.
Listen, I say that cannabis can be a part of craziness and lunacy, but
Yeah.
it's typically not the sole part of
Exactly.
craziness and lunacy. If you're younger and you're running with an older crowd and you're drinking and
Mhm.
smoking weed and doing crazy things, yeah, I mean, you got a chance
Yeah.
or if you're a high school athlete, never touched anything,
Mhm.
you go in and you get 60 Percocets after your shoulder
Yeah.
surgery. It can happen that way too.
Yeah.
That's the insidious nature of the narcotics,
Mhm.
and why I really think that once again, and we'll wrap it up because we got a lot more time to talk as
Yeah,
we go.
absolutely. Lot
And
more
listen,
episodes.
everybody, we do. Listen, the 2BG idea is one that I just had as once again a means of continuing to spread the message of
Yeah.
these type of discussions. And I can't wait to dig a little bit deeper into what Ruta's question was.
I'm
And
excited.
I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I wanted to have you in, I got a 30-year-old daughter, Carly, Josh too. And listen, kids, when you're 30 or when you're your age, 25, yeah.
25.
Point is that, listen, what you're looking for right now is the ability to live your life,
Yeah.
raise your kids,
Yeah.
go to work every day with passion,
Mhm.
right? And live the way that your parents raised you.
Absolutely.
Not easy,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So to me, it's that combination of desires that your generation has that wants me to, I want to give you guys a hug. I want to
Yeah.
give you, your whole generation a big hug
Absolutely.
and say, you know what, it's okay.
Yep.
But in whatever role that I can play to assist you and your generation and
Mhm.
kind of answering some of the questions of where my generation has come from.
Yes.
But what I can tell you at this particular point at age 64, I'm not willing to accept continuing forward and not doing anything.
I know.
So-
I like it.
So thank you so much for joining us
And
today.
can I just give
Yeah.
a quick idea for
Absolutely,
the show
Ruta.
going forward? Since
Yeah.
he's so passionate, Brandon, you sound like music's your passion.
Oh, no,
Absolutely.
but
Maybe we can start the show and end the show with some of your music.
Oh,
I think that'd
absolutely,
be
yeah.
awesome.
Great
Just
idea,
really
Ruta.
awesome.
Jingle, for
Listen,
sure.
it'd
did I
be
see that you
awesome.
dropped something just yesterday?
I did 2 days. Yeah, actually yesterday. Yeah, I did.
Give us a shout out to what you're up to, man.
Okay.
That's important.
I
Let's go.
just dropped 2 new songs. One's called Fences, one's called Damaged. And they both really relate to, if you watch Siesta Key or you're familiar with me, they both relate to what I have going on in my life right now. I wrote them and recorded them right after the Siesta Key reunion. So go check them out on all platforms, and we're going to do something special for the podcast. Absolutely.
Cool, man.
And I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm super looking forward to bridging the gap and changing the world one podcast at a time.
Got it. 2BG, man.
I like it.
GG.
All right, everybody, listen. Fantastic today, and we'll see you next week.